My advice to a small business owner or any entrepreneur would be not to be discouraged if the business you end up with is not the one you started out to pursue. Because so often you encounter difficulties, you encounter failures, and the important piece is to learn from each of those very quickly and to pivot and to move on to the idea that works.
Of course, you have to be close to your products, close to your customers, and think about them. That's the most important, but don't forget to think about your business, what your plans are, what you want to do next, how to take your business to the next level. Again, think about being in your business, but think about your business as well.
My best advice is to really work hard to clarify what your purpose is and be able to articulate that, be able to communicate it in a simple sentence. And the reason that's important is as you bring people into your company, I think the most important question you ask them is, why are you here? Why do you want to join this company? And if you hear that purpose back, if you hear that passion around that purpose, it makes everything a whole lot easier. Any skill can be learned and taught, but passion cannot.
Being an entrepreneur can be a roller coaster ride at times. You will have great days, you will have not so great days. You may even from time to time have an awful day. You've got to stay focused and stay level-headed.
I am excited today to talk to you about a very special topic when it comes to booking applications, or I'm sorry, booking appointments from your sales funnels. Now, when people hear me talk about webinars and automated webinars, they get confused because a lot of people think that when we're running a webinar, then we're doing a direct-to-sale offer. And while that is true, we've got our own automated webinars running right now that are direct-to-sale. The vast majority of people who are just starting out or launching a new program, I'm going to advise them to launch a book-to-call funnel. And the reason why we do that is very simple, because when you are doing a direct-to-sale offer, you need to be laser dialed in on your messaging, know exactly what it is that your audience wants, what they don't want, and being able to present an effective offer. It is an advanced marketing technique. It is an advanced marketing strategy that I don't recommend for people just starting out. So when we talk about booking call funnels, call booking funnels, man, I'm tripping over my tongue today. Funnels where you book appointments, the number one thing that people ask me is, okay, well, how do I present the offer? And I never really understood why people got this so confused, because it just comes natural to me, but that is a poor assumption on my part as a teacher, as a leader. And so I wanted to record a quick podcast to explain this to you so you understand where I'm coming from. The typical structure of what we're doing with mini webinars when we are asking people to book a call is this. We essentially are giving them the big promise. We are presenting the core promise of the core outcome, the core deliverable of what we want them to accomplish by the end of our engagement working together. And that is the one thing that we need to keep hammering over and over and over again. When we work with clients, we work with them on developing their power offer and developing their message. That's like the number one thing that we are focused on, is getting crystal clear on that promise, on that core deliverable. And we just repeat it over and over and over again. It's repeated in the power offer. It's repeated at the front of our mini webinar. It's repeated at the end of the mini webinar, because this is essentially what leads them to the call to action, right? If we are structuring an offer and we are structuring a promise inside of our mini webinar, inside of our sales mechanism, we have to know what this promise is, because this is what's going to get them to say, okay, great, I'm going to book a call to learn more. Because that's ultimately what we are asking them to do. It's, hey, listen, if you want this core promise, then go ahead and schedule a call with us and learn to see if this is a good fit for you. So when we structure the close at the end of our mini webinar, a lot of people are asking, do you present the program details, right? What do you give them inside of this presentation? Like, are you going through all your bonuses? Are you going through all of your deliverables? The answer is no. The answer is no. Really, the only thing that we are giving them is the core promise. And so if I give you, kind of a template, a script that we go over inside of our own mini webinar, and you can check it out at newwaytolaunch.com. You can see my own mini webinar. That's the application funnel that we use for enrolling our clients. All we are basically saying is, listen, we're looking for course creators and product owners to personally launch and scale the program. Working with them one-on-one so they can quickly dominate their competitors, build a recognizable name in their industry, and grow their business like we've done for previous clients that have reached 6, 7, and 8 figures, and that has the potential to impact thousands of lives. Maybe that's you. If that's you, then fill out an application on the page right now, and let's figure out the best option for you to move forward. That's it, okay? Here's my promise. Let's schedule a call to see if this makes sense for you, okay? I don't go into bonuses. I don't go into, on week 1, we're going to do this. Week 2, we're going to do this. Week 3, we're going to do this. No. The reason why I don't do that is because I don't want to inadvertently say something that's going to kill my sale, that's going to kill my ability to make a conversion. That's one of the reasons why mini webinars are so short, is we want them to be focused on that core promise. We want them to be focused on that big outcome. And then when they get on the call, they can ask questions about how this is going to apply to me. But we give them the minimum viable information so we aren't inadvertently shooting ourselves in the foot. This is why direct-to-sale funnels are so hard, so difficult to get to work, because when we're presenting information on a long-form webinar, we have to know what not to say equally as much as we need to know what to say. And so if we can eliminate the stuff that is going to possibly hurt our conversions, that's what we do with a mini webinar. That's what we do with book-to-call funnels. Does that make sense? So dial in your power offer, repeat it over and over and over again, because that's what's going to get them to book a call to learn more about your program, about your offer. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it, right? It is not any more complicated than what I just explained to you. All right, so that's what I've got for you on today's podcast. Hopefully this was helpful for you, as it helps explain, what to say and what not to say on book-to-call funnels to get people to schedule a call to talk to you. And I hope you understand now how to present your offer.
Hi, we welcome you all on another session, and today's topic is selling and negotiation skills. 3 C's of communication: connect, convey, and convince. Connect, convey, and convince. I see a lot of salesmen in our country. They spend their all entire energy in conveying and convincing the client. They convey 90%, the client is convinced only 10%. You know why? Because they did not invest energy in connecting with the client. Once you connect, you invest 10% energy in conveying, is 90% convinced already. But you don't connect, 90% you spend energy in conveying, keep conveying him, he is not convinced. But once you are connected, itna sa convey karenge, 10%, 90% job is already done. You don't have to struggle to convince him. The moment you are struggling to convince him, you can understand that you are not connected with him. The proof that you are not connected with him is that he is not convinced with you. Once the foundation is good, you will get the good fruits. Roots are good, you get the good fruits. A lot of time, energy, money is saved when you invest in connecting. A lot of time, energy and money is wasted when without connecting you start conveying your message. Now you might ask me, sir, what to do to connect with him? What to do to connect with him? I'll give you few points as a solution to help you connect with your client. The first thing is WIIIFM. WIIIFM. What is in it for me? What is in it for me? What is in it for me? He will not tell you, but he is thinking inside. The background is, what is in it for me? The foreground is, if his expectation is meeting the reality, he'll buy it. NIC, need, interest, concern. Understand your client's needs, interest and concern. To the degree you understand his needs, his interest and his concern, to that degree you will be able to connect with him. And once you connect, conveying, convincing, no problem. But the challenge is, I have seen that a lot of salesmen, when I have met them, they have their own needs, their own interest, their own concern, my need, my interest, my concern. It will not work. It doesn't work that way. Clients need, clients interest, clients concern, and need to understand first, then to be understood. एक बात को 3 बार दोहराने का बड़ा लाभ होता है. कहते हैं तलाक, 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 तलाक हो जाता है. So I am repeating that. Seek to understand first, then to be understood. पहले समझे, फिर समझाएं. सेल्समैन वो कामयाब नहीं है जो समझाने को तैयार है पर समझता नहीं है. So how do you do that? By asking probing questions, open-ended questions, and this process of asking questions will lead you to, through your navigation, it will lead you to the final root of his challenges, and you will be able to offer a solution to his challenges. And to the degree you give him solution of his challenges, to that degree you will see you don't have to sell it. It is already bought. खरीद लिया है उसने आपका product. Why? You know what? Because you're not a salesman. You are a consultant now. And that's the difference between a salesman and consultant. A salesman and a consultant. Never be a salesman. Be a consultant. And how do you become a consultant? You are consulting him to understand what is he looking for, what are his needs, and then you offer a solution. And you're offering a solution which he is needing. Usko chahiye hai bhai. He needs it now. And no matter how softly you communicate, he's already bought it. You don't have to convince him now. He's already convinced. You know, because you've done a right gap analysis, a need analysis, that gap and need analysis will give you the right product to offer, and he'll be so happy and excited to receive that. I'll give you an example from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita was spoken 5,200 years ago, and Krishna and Arjuna were discussing in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna had a lot of challenges. He was not ready to fight. He said, my dear Krishna, I'm not going to fight. मैं लड़ना ही नहीं युद्ध. गांडी उठा के फेंक दिया. And such a man, when Arjuna is not ready to fight, Krishna did not started giving him solution. कोई संस्कृत में ज्ञान नहीं दिया कृष्ण ने. ऐसा करो अर्जुन, ऐसा करो अर्जुन, ऐसा करो. कुछ नहीं किया कृष्ण ने. शांत थे बिल्कुल. And he was waiting to understand Arjuna completely. Until Arjuna was convinced that Krishna has understood me completely, and Krishna was convinced that I have understood Arjuna completely. And when both were convinced, the connection established. And now, when a little bit of conveying of the message was done by Krishna, Arjuna was completely convinced. What does that mean? 48 minutes, entire Bhagavad Gita over. Arjuna ready to fight. Absolutely convinced. Nasht moho. Mera moh nasht ho gaya hai, Krishna. That was the end of Gita. And then Arjuna was ready to fight with the bow and arrow. So convincing doesn't take time to take place. What takes time is to connect. Invest energy in connecting. And that's what Krishna did. That's called consultative selling. Consulting and offering a solution. That was for today's one central message. Don't give presentation. Do the gap analysis, need analysis. What is in it for me? Connect, convey, convince through need, interest, concern, understanding his challenges, and then when you seek to understand first, then to be understood, you're finally ready with the solution. He has bought your solution. One central message for you. Thank you very much. Keep in touch with us. Keep watching more videos.
Well, it turns out you should be doing storytelling with data, but it's a lot easier than you probably think it is. Once you know the 3 elements of a story: setup, conflict, resolution, you can start telling stories with your data. Setup, conflict, resolution. Then you have conflict, which is change to that reality. Without change, there is no story. You just have a bored audience. The resolution is just the new reality that the change creates. So with that in place, we can now take a chart. We're going to break it down, pull it apart, find the stories in it, find the setups, the conflicts, the resolutions, and we're going to rebuild it as a storytelling device. Okay, now we're back with a chart. This is Global Real Home Price Index. The index is 100, and you see a bunch of lines for countries. There's a gray line in there, that's the aggregate as well. This chart is really showing home prices in a lot of different places in the world, and that's where I'm starting. So I want to find the stories in here. The first thing I start to notice really are a couple of things. I obviously noticed that big hump on the green line there, that's Japan, and I noticed that point where everything comes together. To me, that immediately says those are probably two places where there's conflict. But I realized something as I'm looking at this, and I'm glad I did, because otherwise I would have had the wrong story, and that is that these home prices are indexed to 2005. So the fact they come together there in 2005 doesn't mean the prices came together. That just means those are the dollars that the people who made the chart used to show the change in house prices over time. So there's really no conflict there. And in fact, I think that's my setup. That's where we start because that's where they started. I can still tell those two stories on the left and on the right, but I start there instead of at the beginning of the chart. I can look backward and say, home prices rose steadily in most places in the world for 30 years, except for in Japan, which experienced a 3-decade-long bubble. And that is a perfectly good story. The setup is home prices rose steadily in most places, except in Japan, which is the conflict and the resolution. It experienced this 30-year bubble. And then working from 2005 to the right, I have another story, which is that there was a smaller housing price bubble, in most places except Japan. So now the story is flipped. But something different happened this time, and that is that the markets bifurcated. And you ended up with 3 markets, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, rising again, looking much like a bubble, and the rest falling and then rising back to about 2005 levels. So I've really started to see a couple of stories emerge here. One, both starting in 2005, because that's where our prices start, and one sort of working backward in time and one working forward in time. Okay, so I'm going to spare you most of my sketching because it's so messy and chaotic it probably would just give you a headache, but I did a bunch of sketching and I arrived at these final charts, and I've split the chart up into a couple of states. It really helps your audience focus. So here's my setup. You can see it. Prices rose steadily in most places in the world. I try to use my titles to actually reflect the story, and here the steady increase reflects that setup instead of just using a generic title about global real home prices, which is boring and not helpful. The title can really do some work for me here. And then I want to add the conflict and resolution state 2. There it is. You can see we've added Japan, except in Japan in the title. And that conflict and resolution becomes clear that Japan was this bubble that lasted 30 years that was different than everywhere else. And you can see as I present this, it almost looks seamless as if I'm just showing you one chart that changes state. And then I'm just going to repeat this process for going forward. And you see here, I've included my setup, conflict, and resolution all together in one state. You see that little bubble, and then you see the bifurcation of the market. But the most important thing is I've really highlighted the elements of the story in both cases and nothing else. I've left out any information that might distract from telling that story. I've not focused on anything that doesn't matter to telling that simple story of setup, conflict, and resolution. Narrative is the most powerful, most human tool we have to communicate. If you can apply storytelling to your data, it creates an emotional connection with the audience. They're not only going to believe what you show them, they're going to feel it.
Like the name suggests, monopolistic competition is kind of like a monopoly, but it's also kind of like competition. So like monopoly, these firms are price makers. They can charge any price they want, and the demand doesn't equal the marginal revenue. But like perfect competition, it's easy for other firms to enter because there's low barriers. So they're gonna make no economic profit in the long run. But another thing that makes it completely different than perfect competition is the products. They are not identical, they're differentiated. These businesses do have products that are actually very close substitutes, but because they're not identical, they have some control over the price. So that means it's not a price taker, and the demand's not horizontal. It's actually downward sloping, just like a monopoly. This shows a monopolistically competitive firm in the short run. Now, how do I know it's the short run? Well, because they're making profit. Right here is the total revenue. There's the total cost, and so right there is the profit. Notice that in the short run, it's exactly the same as a monopoly graph in every single way. But eventually, other firms are gonna see them making profit, and they're gonna enter the industry. And that's gonna end up with a graph that looks just like this. The only thing that's different is the ATC hits the demand curve right there at the quantity where MR equals MC. This means they're making no economic profit. The total revenue is right there, the total cost is right there, so no economic profit in the long run. All right, let's back up and figure out how do we go from short run to long run. So we've got this graph. Here's a monopolist, a competitive firm making profit. What's gonna happen in the long run? Other firms gonna enter. That's not gonna shift the ATC. What's gonna happen is other firms enter. That means now these firms have more substitutes, so their demand's going to fall. When the demand decreases, it's gonna shift to the left, and it's gonna cause this firm to be in the long run. So make sure you can draw that graph on your test and you understand the process by which firms entering will cause the demand fall and it'll be in the long run equilibrium where there's no economic profit. If you like these videos, leave a comment and make sure to subscribe. Also, take a look at the playlist for this unit that covers all the key concepts and graphs. And take a look at my review app for the AP test. All right, until next time.
Today, business model and strategy are among the most sloppily used terms in business. But these are separate concepts with enormous practical value. And when it comes to concepts so fundamental to success, no organization can afford fuzzy thinking. The term business model emerged when personal computers and spreadsheets became common, says Joan McGreta, a longtime editor at Harvard Business Review. Managers could use these tools to literally run the numbers to see models of how various decisions might affect the bottom line. A new business model might hinge on either a different way to make something or a different way to sell something. Take discount retailers like Kmart and Walmart, for example. These pioneers applied supermarket logic to the conventional department store and developed a discount retail model, which involved slashing costs by eliminating chandeliers, carpets, and personal service in exchange for lower prices. While business model is a description of how your business runs, a competitive strategy explains how you will do better than your rivals.